Hi, this is John from caveofprogramming.com, coming to you from sunny Budapest, where we have the sound of a car alarm and a nightclub in the background, so apologies for that. But this is a tutorial on the for each loop in JSTL, and we're going to look more at the for each loop in future tutorials. But in this tutorial I want to show you the for each JSTL equivalent of just a for loop in Java. So the for each loop looks like this. We have a C: for each, and now that takes some attributes, and the first attribute we want here is called var, and that sets the EL variable, that we can then use to find the value of the loop counter in this loop. And there's also a begin attribute that says what value we should begin with. And let's say 0 here. So I is first going to take the value 0. And we also have our end attribute here, which I'll set to 5. Actually, I'll set it to 10. So the last value of I will be 10. Now let's say here loop, let's actually have a BR tag, line break tag, and I'll say loop counter is, and I'll have a closing BR tag here. And let's have here a C: out, and I'll say that the value of that is going to be, and I'll use expression language here, EL, and I'll just output I like that. Okay, I think that looks good, and we'll close that tag. Now let's see if that works. I'll save this because I notice that in this version of Eclipse, if I don't save it, it does save automatically before running, but then it often seems to run a cached version. So here we've got the loop counter going from 0 to 10 as we expect. And in fact, let's just see if I can reduce the line spacing here. I'll have a self-contained BR tag there. I'm not sure if this will make any difference, and I'll get rid of that first one. Okay, now another thing you can do with for each is that you can specify the step. There's a bunch of attributes here, and I'm just going to show you the most useful ones, which actually is most of them. And I'm going to say step equals 2, and that does what you expect. So if I run that now, we're going to count from the begin value, which is 0, to the end value, which is 10, in increments of 2. And another thing which I think is really useful is the var status attribute, because with var status now I can set this to a EL variable name, which I'll just call status. And status is, well, let's show you what it is. I'll just copy this C out here, and let's just paste it down here for a moment and output status directly, although this won't look pretty. But if I run this now, you can see that status is actually an object of the type loop tag support, so you can look that up on Google if you want the full API thing for this. And what we can do with that is it actually has a field, among other things. It's got a few fields. It's got the step size and the begin and end of the loop. It's got that information in it. Because of course you might not know that in advance. You might use EL expressions for begin and end. As far as I know, that's valid. But I think the most useful thing is the first and last attributes of the var status variable here. So let's have a if expression, C: if, and I'll set the test equal to, use expression language again, and I'll set it equal to status dot first. I think that's correct. And let's say here this was the first iteration, and let's just copy that, and underneath that I'll output this was the last iteration, and change that to last. So what first and last do is they enable you to detect the first and last iteration of the loop without actually knowing or caring about the actual values of the loop counter, which I think is extremely useful, because if you've done much programming at all, then probably about 1 million times you will have had to take different action on the first and end values of a loop, and it's always feels a bit inelegant when you do that by checking the value of the loop variable. Let's just run that and see it working. There we go. So, and we've tested correctly for the first and last iterations of that loop using this var status thing here. So that's it for this tutorial, and we're going to go on to look at using for each to iterate over collections, which is extremely useful, of course, and which you'll find very handy indeed. So join me again next time, and until then, happy coding.